ultimate fishing authority in the Northeast, the Fisherman magazine.
No guessing, just catching. New Explore Series fish finders keep you locked on fish with unbeatable clarity, best-in-class imaging options, and a stunning ultra-bright HD screen. There's more to explore, only with Humminbird.
It's Thursday, July 31st, 2025. I'm Jim Hutchinson, and this is your New Jersey, Delaware Bay video fishing forecast for the weekend. Of course, we've had oppressive 90-degree or better temperatures, actually up near 100 for most of this week, but it's expected to cool down as we head into this first weekend of August and the return, Friday, August 1st, of our one fish bag limit for Tautog. That's good news for those looking for an additional jetty score for the month of August, especially now that the Jersey Shore Fluke are pretty much leaving our back bay locations for cooler, deeper waters. Of course, you can find some good Fluke action in the inlets where you've got some cooler water around those inlet rocks. Now, we'll take a look at the inshore and the offshore marine forecast for this week as a cold front is coming down from Canada sometime today into Thursday night, Friday, and into the weekend. And we also will highlight a few significant catches from the Jersey Shore, from our readers and viewers. And of course, we have our weekly reports with Jenny and George, and our Dreamboat Fishing Challenge, and our Coastal Kayak Clash as well. But first, let's dig deep into the August edition of the Fisherman magazine, hot off the presses from Sunday. Mahi gets the cover this month. That's Craig Wartz on the cover from a few years back at the Mud Hole. So here's how that works. I get a lot of photos at the Fisherman magazine. They come via email and text and social media and Instagram, and I just can't keep up with it. I've actually got a couple of Polaroids on my desk that I have to scan as well. So all these photos come through. And at times, like with this one, I'm like, oh, this is a great photo. And I put it off to the side to run it in a special occasion. And with Captain John Raguso with a highlight article in the Glossy this month on Mahi, thought this was a perfect place for Craig's spotlight image from the Mud Hole. Inside your local edition this week. I say this week because it's on newsstands now. And you subscribers, you're getting it either Wednesday or Thursday, maybe Friday at the very latest. But inside that New Jersey, Delaware Bay edition, 5 outstanding features to help you put a bend in the rod for the next 30 days. Frank Mahalik offers up that TOG advice for August, tips and tactics. Not only blackfish by boat, but also along the jetties. But you've got the opportunity there when you're baiting up for TOG around the bridge structure or inlet jetties. You've got triggerfish, some puppy drum, and of course, sheepshead all month long. Tuna fishing on a budget with William Graham. Flukin' in the Wash by Rig, Jig, or Plug by Nick Konicheski. False albacore tactics from a new writer, Rob Crossley. His first feature article appears in the August edition. Another newbie, Dave Migdal, Spotlight Summer Catfish. The article reminded me a lot of Huck Finn, Tom Sawyer, The Simplicities of Life. Now, getting a little bit more complex, on the other hand, black sea bass management, which shouldn't be too difficult if you stare at the chart long enough. And that's what I'm asking folks to do and asking NOAA Fisheries if they would kindly do as well in my editor's log on page 3. This month it's called False Promises. It details a rather unique history of fisheries management from a black sea bass perspective and talks more about how we are always sacrificing but very rarely reaping the rewards of sacrificial success. I encourage you to take a look at that one. This is something we'll be talking about probably next week in advance of the Mid-Atlantic Fishery Management Council meetings the second week of August, and a shot, hopefully, at black sea bass. You've got news briefs, calendar events, product reviews, the latest reports, and a whole bunch of reader photos this month. But that's only half of it in the New Jersey, Delaware Bay edition, because you've also got that Glossy edition, 5 additional feature editorials, and our tail end feature this month.
The August Glossy edition of the Fisherman magazine is out now. Dave Anderson has tips to increase your hardtail success. David Germain has a great read on a Wicked Tuna alumni on how to become an effective tuna hunter. Captain John Raguso shares his insights on targeting the northeastern Dorado. Going deep for speed? This article is written by Ricky Frank and Nick DeGennaro on how to trick the fastest of the fast pelagics. Finally, Eric Abramson has this month's tail end. Home is where the fishing is. To get all this and more, be a subscriber to the Fisherman magazine. When you subscribe, you get 12 glossy print editions, 26 digital editions to your inbox, this past weekend's reports, plus full access to the website and more. As a subscriber, you can also be part of the Dreamboat Challenge and win a Steiger craft powered by Yamaha and compete for a rigged out kayak from Yak Attack. Subscribe now.
Jig, rig, and plug. That article starts on page 22 of this month's edition of the Fisherman magazine. Yeah, I know we all know how to catch fluke. You can't teach an old dog new tricks, or can you? Nothing ever changes. Yeah, sure. I remember that summer that the Fisherman magazine's Pete Barrett returned from Spirit Lake, Iowa. I believe it was the summer of 2003, and he put some Berkeley gulp on my desk, and he said, "Here, give this a shot for your fluke fishing." I was like, "Gulp? What the heck is this?" That changed things, right? Well, surf fluke, of course, can be taught on your standard high-low rig, your high-low teaser rig. You can bucktail them. You can put the gulp or fish bites on your jig head. But in recent years, the hard-body jerk baits are working well also. You can check out that article. Shell Karras, he's the one that told me about this last year. He's been using those hard-body jerk baits right along the bottom. Fluke love it. So make sure you take a look at that article from Nick Honicheski, because you really can teach old dogs new tricks. Again, if you're hitting the surf during the month of August, those high-low pompano-style rigs with little bits of bloodworm or fish bites bag of worm on there will get you into kingfish, croaker, and yes, the occasional pompano during the summer, especially in the lower half of the Garden State. On the inlet jetty rocks for the rest of August, you have the opportunity for tog jigs with crab baits, fiddler crabs, sand flea, green crabs. This is the time of year, once August 1st hits, that a lot of tackle shops start carrying live crabs. So you can put that jig down on the jetty rocks, hoping for that tog, but also it's good for sheepshead, and I've caught triggerfish that way as well. So we've got our one fish tog limit back in place, and that's great. One of the biggest reasons for that is the spearfishermen of New Jersey, the guys who are snorkeling, going down and sticking fish, because give me one fish in the summer while the water's warm. And that makes a lot of sense. Is it worth it? One fish bag limit? I don't know. I think a lot of folks stopped targeting weak fish over the years. Not because they wanted to keep their full bag limit, but with a one fish bag limit, a lot of folks turned away from that opportunity to be able to catch one. But one 15-inch blackfish by boat or by jetty with a chance to also snare black drum or sheepshead, well, absolutely. And again, that August edition of the Fisherman magazine, page 14 by Frank Mahalik, it's absolutely worth it. And it's especially worth it now. We've got that fluke bag limit of 3 fish, right? But they're moving out of the bay areas. So some of that bridge structure where you've been enjoying some fluke fishing, well, now August 1st, you've got a different opportunity in there as well. Now, I hear some folks complaining about a 3 fish bag limit on fluke, but those 3 fish at 18 inches, that's a goodly number of meals for the folks at home. And again, as waters are starting to warm up even more in these dog days of summer, the water temperatures that I had in the upper stretches of Barnegat Bay on the end of the outgoing tide, or the end of the incoming tide on Saturday morning, 80 degrees. But at the beginning of when it was dead low and the water was coming in, now I'm starting to get some different water temperatures of down into the 70s. So again, if you're working those back stretches, pay attention to your fish finder. What the water temperatures are, because if you're up around 80, those fish might not be eaten. But on the incoming tide, for example, and cooler ocean waters are coming in, now it starts to cool off and maybe you might have some better opportunities. But you do want to move closer to the inlets or go out front, of course. But obviously the inshore waters, the wrecks, reefs, lumps, and snags, those holes will provide your best option from north to south. So let's look at some of our fluke catches from north to south. Jen Wong checked in. He was on the Mad Gaffer with Don Morantz from JCAA, Arnie Ulrich from HRFA. The boys got a bunch of limits with Captain Ray in Monmouth County waters, off the beach a little bit. I'm taking a closer look at that rig that Jen has. He didn't say anything about it, but it looks like a little fresh to salt crossover with one of those blades that you would see on a largemouth bait. And it's funny, coincidentally, a buddy of mine dropped off some of these little blades. He said, try putting these on your jig head. I know it's working for the guys in the surf, putting a little blade, some additional flash on there in the surf line for Fluke, but that's something I want to give a try this weekend. It's similar to the old style Roadrunner jigs. Like I said, you can always tweak your Fluke game a little bit no matter how long you've been playing it. I got another email from Ed Masunis this week. Those fish bites that we gave away during the winter show season, Ed said, yeah, they do work. Wife Bev, the tires outside of Barnegat using the fish bites that they got from the Fisherman magazine at the Edison show. This 26-incher weighed nearly 7 pounds, according to Weighmaster Tom P. at Creekside Outfitters in Waretown, a new personal best for Bev Masunis. Another boat show regular, Captain Bob Bulger, works with the Fisherman magazine from time to time during the winter show season. He fished Townsend Inlet Reef last week, had 9 flounder, 2 were keepers, 22 and 20 inches. Good job, my friend. Another Cape May County rug, 9.5 pounds for Nick Rambo. This past Saturday on the first drift before the winds came up hard, it was good enough for first place in the King of the Cape tournament out of Cape May over the weekend. A 28.5-inch flatty right there. Rambo's on the meat. Tournament-wise, this weekend, weather dependent, of course, you have the Micah Club's Terry McGuire Fluke tournament running from Friday, August 1st, all the way through Sunday the 3rd. The captain's meeting underway tonight, Thursday the 31st, at the Micah Club over there on Radio Road in Little Egg Harbor. Saturday, August 2nd, the 28th annual Fluke Masters tournament presented by Community Fire Company number 4. That's at 75 Appleton Avenue in Leonardo. Captain's meeting 7 p.m. on Friday the 1st. Contact Dennis Smith, 732-546-0395. Also from the Raritan to the Rattlesnake, you've got Saturday's Grandpa Savino Memorial Fluke Tournament presented by the Staten Island Tuna Club. For registration and tournament details, call Walt Fisher, 917-375-7607. They have a $25,000 cash reward for a Fluke over 11 pounds. And now is the time for doormats. Now, at last check, the largest doormat in the Fisherman magazine's Dreamboat Fishing Challenge was 13 pounds. That's a $25,000 fish, I guess. And if I'm not mistaken, we have a new entry on the board from South Jersey. Let's go back to our virtual studios for a checkup. We'll look at the leaderboard in the Dreamboat Fishing Challenge and the Coastal Kayak Clash.
It's the last week of July, and here is the latest from the Dreamboat Fishing Challenge. We have Long Island subscriber Patrick Lapasanieri of Amityville weighing in a sea robin at 2.58 pounds at Combs Bait and Tackle, placing Patrick 7th in the sea robin category. Next is Scott McDonald, New Jersey subscriber from Vineland, New Jersey, brings in this 8.5-pound Fluke weighed in at Fanatics and putting Scott 4th in the Fluke class. We end the week with the leaderboard looking like this. Rashawn Williams is in first place at 17 points. Holding second was Jeffrey Harrison at 17 points. Third goes to Thomas Luciano with 15 points. Are you the best angler in the Northeast? Well, now is your chance to prove it. The Fisherman's Dreamboat Contest is back. Win this Steigercraft center console powered by Yamaha along with these other great prizes. Fish hard and weigh in as many of these species to be top on the leaderboard. What's the catch? You must be a subscriber to the Fisherman magazine. All it takes is one fish on the board to win a great prize, so however you fish, you have a shot. For all the details and official rules, visit thefisherman.com.
It was a surprisingly slow week in the Coastal Kayak Clash. Even in spite of the nice weather, we had one fish hit the board, but it was a big one. Rotha Nong entered a 49 3/4-inch striped bass, which now leads the striper category. At the top of the leaderboard, we've had a little bit of a shakeup. We still have Dustin Stevens holding strong in first place with 9 points. Rotha Nong now jumps into second place with 6 points, and Tom Hoot drops to third with 5 total points.
Hey kayakers, the Fisherman's Coastal Kayak Clash contest is back. Win this fully outfitted Hobie Mirage Lynx kayak from Yak Attack along with other great prizes. Catch and release as many of these species to be top on the leaderboard. To enter, you must be a subscriber to the Fisherman magazine, fish from a kayak, and document your catch. Many chances to win great prizes, so get out there on the water now and fish hard. To be part of the action, you must be a subscriber and register at thefisherman.com.
All right, like I mentioned, those tournaments coming up this weekend, I'm not going to sugarcoat it. The marine forecast from NOAA Weather for the coming days is a bit sporty. Wind gusts expected to kick in Thursday today into Thursday night. We're looking at swells on Friday and Saturday, so despite my stellar forecast for fluking in the back, you may have a few options, and it may be your only fallback. However, that said, Donna Jackson emailed me on Wednesday saying not all of the summer flounder are reef bound. Some are still chewing in the back bay behind Wildwood. She caught this jumbo on Tuesday using orange gulp and minnows on the Fox Chaser 2 out of Otten's Harbor. Now, on the very next episode of Jenny Ackerman's Open Boat that premieres this Sunday night, you're going to have to look on Sunday to see that full video. Jenny is out with Frankie Z. They're targeting Fluke and showcasing some of the setups before the wind plays a factor on where to go for the bite. From live bait to artificials, get ready to drop a line with Jenny and see what she jigs up on this week's episode of Open Boat.
All right, guys, this week's Open Boat, I have another treat for you. We're fishing. We're cranking the fan out front right now, trying to get some fluke bites, and you gotta stay tuned to see what happens on Sunday at 6 p.m. So stay tuned then for the airing of this week's Open Boat. I'll catch you guys out there.
Now, Jenny Ackerman, of course, has been active, so actively involved in so many different programs locally. One of them was the Pink Minnows program for young anglers, young lady anglers in the Manasquan area, teaching these young lady anglers how to fish. And another young volunteer who was involved in that special program is Chris Scotti. Chris said he was offshore last week and got into some of this mahi action that, again, you're going to find out all about by going back to that August edition of the Fisherman magazine for dolphin fish tips and tactics from Captain John Raguso. In his regular offshore report that appears in the August edition and will appear every Monday at thefisherman.com, Tom P., Rack and Fin Radio, on which I will be appearing this Saturday morning. That's the Atlantic City-based radio station, ESPN, Tom Rack and Fin Radio, and also our offshore field editor. He offered some recommendations for offshore action right out of the gate in August from mid-range bluefin to canyon yellowfin and big eye. Now, the offshore reports are intensifying out at the canyons from the Hudson to the Baltimore. Mid-range bluefin in play, some days hot, some days it's just a little warm. Brian Higgins was aboard Captain Ty's offshore banker with his dad, Brian Sr. They were in search of bluefin outside of Manasquan, mid-range grounds, prospecting the inshore lumps and bumps on the troll. Didn't expect to tackle this 57-inch cobia, a rather unique and nice surprise. The problem now I will tell you about with bluefin, yellowfin, tilefish, billfish, wahoo, mahi, and mid-range cobia perhaps as well. This cold front that's coming through Thursday and Friday from the northwest that's expected to stall a bit Thursday, and then a low pressure system develops along that stalled boundary on Friday. Thus, what we're looking at weather-wise from the Hudson to the Baltimore this weekend, it leaves a lot to be desired. A window is open on Thursday, and hopefully the next window pops open sometime on Monday. But you've got some wind and you've got some swells to contend with for the next 3 days. I spoke to Richie Keppen the other day. He told me he's enjoying the largemouth action along some of those ponds and lakes, typically the private water bodies in the Toms River area. If you do get weathered out on any particular weekend, make sure you get your freshwater license and give some of those ponds, lakes, and streams and rivers a little bit of a chance, because we really do have some great freshwater opportunities and options here in the Garden State. Maybe your buddies are talking you into playing that one round of golf. Well, wait until the weather weekend that you know it's going to be blowing offshore. Tuck a spinning outfit inside your golf bag, and then just make sure that you find all the water hazards along the way. Hint, hint. Adapt, improvise, and overcome. That's what it's always about. I wish New Jersey Transit and the Department of Transportation here in New Jersey could adapt, improvise as well. More bridge problems in the Garden State, this time in South Jersey. Plus, a big fisheries meeting next week, the Atlantic States Marine Fisheries Commission. I want to tell you all about that and what it means for striped bass fishing in 2026. But first, let's get our regular weekly Sweetwater update from my friend George Schauer, the Pocono Outdoors Guy.
Well, hey, thanks, Jim. You know, some great fishing even in this summer heat. Things have probably been hot now for what, a couple weeks? And the fishing's still pretty good. You know, don't dismiss just because the heat's on, the fishing's going to be terrible. A couple of guys checking in this week actually showing they can get on a bite. Tom Gilmore out in Delaware Water Gap, he was picking up some largemouth, smallmouth out there on the river. Some good fishing out there. Tom always seems to get in the fish. Thanks for checking in, Tom. Over in Jersey Jen Wang's, he's the one that got into some largemouth over on the side of the river. Again, some good fishing there. Bass always seems to be a summertime favorite. You know, you can get those largemouth up in the pads like we talked about, smallmouth in the deeper, cooler waters, but still lots of great fish to get on there. Steve Kolnick and Josh Taylor, two very good friends of mine. Well, they were up at Harvey's Lake and they were chasing around some smallmouth and some brown trout. Josh said they managed to get into about 7 trout and 12 smallmouth. Not too bad for a morning's worth of fishing, so good work there. Also, guys, this week I had the pleasure of working with a couple of guys from the New Jersey Multi-Species Mayhem podcast. So we had Joe Santiago and Chris Piera out there, and what a couple of great guys. If you guys haven't listened to their podcast, give it a check out. They love fishing just as much as we all do, so share some good information there. And thank you guys for having us on. Please look out for that episode in the coming weeks. Guys, just be sure you get out and get on some great fishing ahead. You got a cool front coming in. Should pick up the bite a little bit. We'll see how that goes, but for now, go get on them. From Pennsylvania, I'm George, your Pocono Outdoors Guy.
In the famed waters of Panama awaits a fishing experience like no other. Tropic Star Lodge welcomes anglers to get in on world-famous fishing action. Plan your perfect trip today. Tropic Star Lodge, the ultimate in fishing adventures for more than 60 years.
For more than 20 years, anglers everywhere have come to know one thing, that nothing says no to fish bites.
We're going to finish up this week's video fishing forecast for the New Jersey, Delaware Bay region with local headlines. Of course, the oppressive heat that we've had at times throughout the summer, that has wreaked havoc on many of the bridges in New Jersey, particularly Manasquan, the Train Bridge, and that Shark River Inlet Bridge, where when it gets really hot, they shut the bridge, they don't open it, and that interrupts the flow of boat traffic. Well, this week in South Jersey, it's the opposite problem. Atlantic County, Tuesday, while opening to allow a boat to pass through the bridge over Beach Thoroughfare on Route 30 connecting Absecon and Atlantic City Brigantine, it got stuck in the up direction, forcing that roadway, Route 30, to be closed. With some cooler weather in the forecast after this front comes down through Canada, perhaps that will calm things down a bit. But as of Wednesday morning, I know crews were still working on that bridge. Folks from the New Jersey Department of Transportation and the Atlantic City Fire Department. I found out the hard way, or nearly found out the hard way, on my way down to a meeting in Atlantic City on Wednesday. Now to the north, work is underway offshore by Empire Wind. They're laying cable. They're getting ready to lay cable from their industrial offshore wind farm just south of Long Beach, New York. That turbine cluster is expected to be developed about 19 miles east of Long Branch. Now, the giant Marmac 306 is currently excavating the trench where it will later lay the cable using a vertical injector. It's a massive piece of machinery. It's said to look like a giant hockey stick. It hangs from the side of the boat just below the waves. It shoots jets of water into the seabed to blast out a 15-foot trench. Ultimately, the power pulsing through those seafloor cables will make landfall in Brooklyn, electromagnetic fields of massive, massive power. Not sure what impact this will eventually have on fish and fishing in that area. But according to an article in the Financial Times, one industrial offshore wind CFO, chief financial officer, said, quote, "There's very little possibility that more offshore wind projects will get developed in the U.S. in the foreseeable future." From your lips to God's ears. Now, in terms of stuffing fish sausages, let's talk striped bass. Because the Atlantic States Marine Fisheries Commission will meet next week in Arlington, Virginia. I'll be sitting in on portions of the webinar program, in particular next Wednesday afternoon. That's August 6th from 1:15 p.m. until 5:30 p.m. Oh yeah, it's a long one. But striped bass management is on the table again. The board is going to be discussing draft addendum 3 and the state of the 2026 fishery. Folks, all indications are that we will be seeing some type of seasonal restrictions for striped bass sometime in 2026. Spring or fall, maybe a combination of both. The timing needs to be developed. I'm not sure how it works, but it's going to be very much like we see with summer flounder and porgy and sea bass, a striper season where you're going to have some type of closure, whether it's a harvest restriction or targeting, I'm not so sure. But we will find out more information next Wednesday. If I have the time, I'll share with you whatever I find out from next Wednesday's meeting. But this is going to be a big story that we're going to be following very closely here at the Fisherman Magazine, because whatever comes out of next week's ASMFC meeting will eventually lead to public hearings and your opportunity sometime this fall to provide public comment back to the ASMFC. Now, some folks, when it comes to striped bass, have pointed to the industrial reduction fleets, the menhaden reduction fleets out of Reedville, Virginia. Certainly Omega Protein comes to mind. They're actually owned by a Canadian company now called Cook Seafood. Well, reduction for bunker, menhaden, is outlawed here in New Jersey. Those factory ships that are vacuuming up all that bunker are doing so outside the 3-mile line out in federal waters. Just about every state has made it against the law to process menhaden for reduction purposes in state waters. All but Virginia, where those boats apparently are allowed to vacuum as much bunker out of the Chesapeake and the Virginia portion of the Chesapeake as they possibly can. And that is what some folks say is causing one of the problems, one of the key problems in the Chesapeake in terms of the health of that important striped bass estuary. Now, love him or hate him, President Trump recently shared an interesting video on his own social media feeds from the Virginia Saltwater Sport Fishing Association. It features an old friend of mine, Captain Vinny Calabro of Caranan Charters up on Jamaica Bay in New York. You may have seen this video featuring Captain Vinny. It was shared by the Conservatives for Fair Fishing. Honestly, I can't keep up with all these nonprofit groups. I don't know who the Conservatives for Fair Fishing are, but this video that they did is killer. It's probably the best strategy I've seen for going after the industrial menhaden fleet. I'm going to share that video with you in just a moment. But if you think about it, with all this tariff talk, the border debates, America first, attacking a key point of the bunker reduction industry, the fact that they're owned by a Canadian company, well, like I said, love them or hate them, this 4.5-minute video that the president shared really hits the mark in this unique fishery. So anyway, Wednesday, I didn't have time to report this on you, for you, but I'm going to find out more. Captain Vinny, keep calling him Video. Captain Vinny Calabro was joined on Wednesday by a Louisiana guide named Rhett Frenette, along with Steve Atkinson from the Virginia Saltwater Sport Fishing Association and representatives from the Southern Maryland Recreational Fishing Organization, another organization I've never heard. They had a press conference calling for the president to do something to go after the Canadian firms who are destroying all of our forage species. Again, I'll have more to share on this, perhaps who to call or who to write. But if you haven't seen this video, I encourage you to watch this, because if you think about it, the recruitment numbers coming out of the Chesapeake for striped bass, baby stripers every year is way down. Would it go up if we had more bunker in the Chesapeake? Not so sure. Check this out. Catch them up. I'll see you out there, and I'll see you again next week right here at thefisherman.com.
How does the government allow other outside entities to take whole aspects of life away from us? The generations to come will not have fishermen.
So here we have a Canadian exploitation of U.S. natural resources. Does that make any sense today?
What do you think would happen if we did not have 51,000 metric tons or 112 million pounds of menhaden removed from the bay every year?
No croaker in the bay, no trout in the bay, crab populations are down, you name it, and it's all contributed to one thing: the pillaging of menhaden in the Chesapeake Bay.
To the benefit of the Canadians.
We're the last people that's allowing this to happen in our own backyards. The only two states that are allowing it are being pillaged by foreigners, and that's a fact.
The scale of their operation is enormous. The impact they've had is unbelievable. You can just talk to any fisherman. What do they say? Oh, the fishing's terrible. Oh, there's no bait. No bait. American fishermen, the lobster industry, the menhaden industry, the striped bass industry, from Key West to Maine. It crushes us. It's a no-brainer.
Well, what's the problem? What's the big deal? The top line is the total allowable catch of Atlantic menhaden on the Atlantic coast. The blue is what is allocated to the Canadian company. Make any sense to you?
These fish, they're called the most important fish in the sea, and there's a reason they're called that. This is a fish that feeds all the other fish: striped bass, bluefish, trout, cobia, red drum, mammals, dolphin, porpoise, whales, as well as seabirds.
So that means 2/3 of the total amount of catch for the entire Atlantic coast is being removed by a Canadian company from the entrance to the bay and the Chesapeake Bay itself, and it's a disaster.
Of all of the fish out there, striped bass are the ones that are most impacted by a reduction in menhaden.
It was the striped bass capital of the world when I was growing up, and now I grew up in Hawaii, and we knew that about the Chesapeake Bay.
Economically, it's probably the most important, most valuable fish we have on the East Coast.
Tons of striped bass. It was it was a $1 million industry, you know what? And almost overnight, gone. That's what happened in the last 10 years.
It's very obvious that somewhere down the way, the menhaden fleet decided not to respect the people around them, and that's where our problem is. You almost feel while working around them that you're in their land, and they're gonna let you know when it's time to get out of it. But I've had enough, and I'm speaking up for thousands of communities and livelihoods that are just like mine and my family's, and we've had enough of it. And I'm tired of somebody that is not from here and doesn't have the blood from where I come from telling me I'm nothing. And I'm not big enough to have a voice against these guys. It's bullshit.
All right, so look, anything that's broke can be fixed, okay, with the right intelligent approach.
This is where your seafood comes out of. And you would think we should put America first.
I'm going to go to the Trump administration and ask for a presidential executive order to end this complete ecological and economic disaster for the U.S. taxpayers.
And we're hoping you hear us. We need help on a federal level to protect our Gulf and our Gulf Coast estuaries before it's too late. Welcome to Louisiana, where foreign countries get to do what they want.